Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life. My name is NBZ and this is episode 58 of this here podcast. And you may notice, once again, that my voice sounds a little different. Of course, last time we were in person and we did that recording with my new microphone. Now I have it to myself, Bally, and I
rub
will
it in,
keep
why
it to
don't
myself.
you? Like,
yes.
Just listen to my terrible voice on this microphone.
Oh man, it's bearable. I don't think our headset Microsoft microphones are that bad. Honestly, I think they're decent quality for the price that you pay. You know,
they're fine. I think they're good. They're good.
They do the job. But you would like to join me up here on the cloud city of audio.
Absolutely,
quality.
yeah. I need to jump on the microphone bandwagon.
You do indeed. So hopefully that may happen sometime in the future. For now, though, we're going to just have a bit of a video game show about the Nintendos and all that stuff. And Bally, you are the one who's going to tell us what we're doing in this show.
We're going to bring you what we've been playing. We've got some emails for the first time in quite a while, I think.
Yes, indeed.
And then we are going to do a little bit of a rumour roundup. There's a few rumours about the NX that we want to perhaps talk about and potential games coming out that have been rumoured. So we're going to talk all about that.
Indeed. And also, before we jump in, Bally, do you want to remind people we have an ongoing competition going on?
Absolutely. This is the last episode before we will announce our winner next episode. So that's going to be the episode that comes out on February the 8th. So this is, of course, our competition for Europeans to win a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles X. There are 3 very simple steps you need to follow to enter. First step, give us a review on iTunes. Second step, follow us on Twitter. The Twitter account is, of course, at TNL Podcast. That's at TNL Podcast. And thirdly, you need to send us a tweet to let us know which European iTunes store you reviewed us in, and perhaps what your username is so that we can identify who reviewed us. So yeah, follow those 3 simple steps. We will select our favorite review at the start of February, and we will announce the winner and get in contact with the winner after the show on February the 8th. So yeah, jump on board for a chance to win.
This is your last opportunity. If you haven't reviewed us and you live in Europe and you want Xenoblade, you know what? Go ahead. It's probably a good idea. So, with all that said, Bally, let's jump into the video game things we've been doing. What have you been getting up to last couple of weeks?
I have been very busy back to work and traveling, and then I've been ill, and I don't know, just been snowed under by stuff and had so little time to game. But
metaphorically snowed under, of course. I don't think have witnessed any actual snow yet.
You shouldn't say that phrase when you have such a large American listenership, perhaps, because there will be a lot of people snowed under, especially today with that blizzard. But anyway, I've been diving into something every day, or at least every day I've remembered, and this is probably Nintendo's best kept secret, and that is Nintendo Badge Arcade. And it's really short, it's really silly, but I think it is not common knowledge that you don't have to spend a penny to win a badge. And I would say win a badge on average maybe 1 or 2 a day. You can win
pretty much
through this without spending a penny. And what I mean by this is, so there's a practice room that's inside the arcade, and you get 5 free plays in the practice room, and then by winning practice badges, for every 10 practice badges you win, you get a free play. But amongst those practice badges, there are randomly special badges that give you 2 free plays. So on average, you're either getting to your quota of 10 or 20, or you're getting one of those random badges. So you always seem to get either 2 free plays or 1 free play, or very rarely 3 free plays. And then it drags you to the real arcade, and you have a real go at the real badges. And then I've won tons, as have you, and we're really enjoying it. And I just think it's it's one of those things where there's a bit of a loophole, and I don't know if Nintendo intended it, and I guess they did intend it, but they've not really been trumpeting it on Twitter or anything, publicizing this fact, because ultimately they are maybe losing money because like I've said, I've not spent a penny, and we're now advertising this that you don't have to spend money to get these badges. And we've got some really awesome badges. Like I'm talking everything from Pikachu to a Game Boy to a Triforce to like themed, so you can get actual themed icons that represent apps. So like the options menu, so you can have like a Box Boy themed options menu or something. Like it's really cool, like what they've thrown in there. And like I've been having a really good time, like spent about 15, I guess it takes about 10 minutes every day, and it's a good time.
It's interesting as well because I think when we first heard about this, we were like less than interested in any sense. And I don't know why it was that both of us at around the same time decided we're just going to try it out and give it a go. But it has turned into one of those daily rituals now, like Street Pass and those kind of things, where you constantly open your 3DS and you're like, oh yeah, I have something to do here every time I go into it. I will say that I think there is still ample opportunity for people to pay money for this stuff because you're never really going to have enough plays for a single specific badge if it's like dug beneath a bunch of other ones. So I feel there are some specific maps or whatever you want to call them that hide badges that are more valuable in tough to find or tough to get places, and as such, if you only have one or two goes at it, you're not really going to be able to get that one guaranteed. You know, like it's going to be much harder to get it, whereas if you pay money and you have 5, then it'll be much easier. And the other thing is sometimes the bunny will give you some free plays just for logging in for some random reason, like if they have some new badges or whatever. And the unfortunate thing is you can't save those. Like as soon as he says you have some free plays, you have to spend them.
Yeah, so you can't stack them exactly.
So you can't go back to the practice catcher and be like tot up to 6 or whatever. It's just not allowed. So
I would agree with you that it's harder to get some of those badges, but I think the key part is it's harder and not impossible. And I actually think that you can almost get any badge with just a couple of plays, and if you get really lucky, you really can get almost anything, I would say. And I have been incredibly lucky on some really they seemed really sort of embedded, and I just got a bit lucky. But
I think that Badge Arcade has been just a fun little distraction. Like, from a video game perspective, I think it's not doing anything like mind-blowing. You know, it's basically those like fucking UFO catcher machines, but in a digital format. But I
think it's a really solid physics engine. I think it's pretty well done.
I mean, it's a Nintendo product. It, of course, is very polished, top to bottom, as they always are. But I think it's a nice thing to have that level of customization on your home menu. And I've really enjoyed like getting something from Pushmo for my settings icon, and then having a little Toad stand with the Miiverse or the Street Pass arena area, and having the Game Boy one to put on my folder, which has all my Game Boy games in it and stuff like that. It really just it makes your home screen feel more personalized in a way that a theme doesn't necessarily do just on its own.
Exactly. Because like I had my Pikmin 3 theme, and then I've just picked up loads of Pikmin badges, as well as those Pikmin icons that are one's carrying the eShop bag, the other's carrying the options. What do you call it? A wrench, and the other one's carrying like an activity log or something. And it's just so cool having like all the Pikmin thematically fit in, and I can change that anytime. I can swap to my Triforce Heroes or my Zelda one and get all my Link Between Worlds badges out. And it's just like a nice little reason to come back to your 3DS every day, and that's like a really clever thing for Nintendo to do. I would say one thing we've not talked about that is part of Badge Arcade, which is incredibly well done and just overly polished, is the pink bunny rabbit. Like your host, I guess you could call them. They are just so like their script is just so well done, and like their animation and the number of lines he has and like all this stuff. I think it's like a real, like, I don't want to spend money on it, but like he definitely pushes you and like in a playful way to like spend money. I think that's quite clever, if not a bit sneaky by Nintendo, perhaps.
as Guillaume would say, he's a rather charming element to the whole package. And I do agree. I think that they kind of put maybe too much effort into like every day he has something different and witty and interesting to say. So it's certainly that Nintendo kind of like going above and beyond what they really need to do. So I appreciate that.
So yeah, I've been playing that, as have you.
Yes.
I've also been playing a bit more of Fire Emblem Awakening, chipping away at that hour count, trying to get there. This game is growing on me more and more. I think that initially, mechanically, I wasn't overly impressed. I thought that the whole pairing mechanic was a change that I wasn't fully comfortable with. I thought I think you can't deny it's completely different to the way that other Fire Emblem games play. But now that I'm used to it, and that my pairings are getting more and more powerful, I'm really appreciating it. And like, I wasn't like, when I would pair characters together before, I'd forget to like switch them, and I forgot you could like actually do that. And like, now I'm switching more and trying to use both characters within the unit more, and I just think I'm getting my head around it a bit more. And obviously they're getting more powerful, they're taking on stronger bad guys, and like, it's just so much more satisfying. And it's just, I understand it now, and I also understand now that there are only certain units can gain support conversations from other certain units, and obviously it has to be a male-female combo to get the S rank, for example, as well. Like, I only just sort of realized these things.
Yeah, totally. I think the affinity system is something that is much more important in this game, and you may have not noticed in like Fire Emblem 7, but it does tell you like which characters can get on with one another. And I think it's only your main avatar that can basically have support conversations with every other character, but aside from that, it's kind of segregated to be like, okay, Chrom can only marry or S rank with these specific female characters, and there are some which are left out. So
yeah, and like, talking of Chrom, I've just like stuck him with Sumia, and like, she's flying all over the map, and like, he can just chip, because one of his special abilities, I think you call them skills, right?
Skills.
He's got a boosted chance of like intervening, which is awesome, and they're now like up to a C or a B rank, so they're kind of sorry, so much coughing. So they're like really kind of my main unit now, which is quite exciting, and I think it's hilarious. I love how well written the support conversations are. I think they are actually quite funny, and like, when I'm now getting sort of maybe 3 support conversations at a time following a lengthy chapter, and it's just so funny watching these like hilariously flirtatious conversations between them, and they start off so awkward, and it's just so funny, and it's very hard to articulate in a podcast without you going and checking out some of those conversations. But I
do think that really 8.4 did a fantastic job localizing this game. There are some lines in there that are very memorable for me that stick out later on in the game, and I think those guys they're brilliant. They do a great podcast, but they are also fantastic at localizing stuff. So I certainly appreciate that aspect of it. I think you were kind of talking to me about how you are really now appreciating the production value on this game, and how you would love to see like an Advance Wars in this engine and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's just such a great engine, and not even hopes for Advance Wars, as like, we don't even know if that's ever going to happen, but hopes for Fates, because like, one of my favorite aspects of this game are the fully animated cutscenes, and one of my criticisms is that there's not enough of those fully animated ones. I'd say there's maybe one every 4 or 5 chapters or so, and I'd really love it if Fates had maybe one every chapter. I don't think that's overkill. I think it's just awesome, like, to have those cinematic cutscenes, because they're really epic, and they draw you to the characters a lot more. I think that it's so much easier to build a relationship with those characters when you see them like in action like that. So yeah, I mean, I may be only 17, 18 hours into this game, so I'm gonna talk about it plenty more when I try to finish this game, hopefully soon. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Fire Emblem Awakening. MBZ, what have you been playing?
So over Christmas, a couple of games came out that I wanted to dig into. Of course, one of them was Fast Racing Neo, and I kind of haven't gone back to that yet. That is one that has that stuff been updated now, so it has a mini map and all that kind of like movement stuff to make it easier to land. So I know you talked about it a lot last time, but I think I'll go back to that at some point soon. The other one, which I haven't talked about yet, but which kind of has been my handheld game for the last little while, is SteamWorld Heist. And this is a follow-up to the brilliant SteamWorld Dig from Image and Form, one of the classic kind of original eShop games on 3DS that really broke through and was like, oh man, this thing is great, and a lot of fun stuff coming out of that. You played it. Did you play it last year? I played
Yes,
it, like, just
I
after
played
it came
it.
out.
It unfortunately didn't quite make the top 10, but it was definitely a game I enjoyed. I did enjoy that.
Yeah. I think SteamWorld Dig is very cool, but I think it's also rather formulaic in some senses. Like, it draws on a lot of other influences. And I'd like to see them like do something more with that thing, but I also really appreciate the fact that Image and Form go out of their way to try something new and something different and still retain that universe and that kind of art style and those characters, but change the genre completely. And so what SteamWorld Heist does is it retains all of the kind of the basic elements, but then it says, okay, instead of this being like a Metroid style 2D platforming thing, it's now a strategy game. And it's a strategy game that isn't necessarily based around RNG and isn't based around numbers and stuff like Fire Emblem is. It's more to do with your own personal skill. And that's fascinating to me because it's weird that this came out in the same year and had the similar kind of aesthetic and name to Nintendo's other, or Intelligent Systems' other strategy game, which is codenamed Steam, which I loved last year and was one of my favorite games. And the fact that it's in 2D, I think, eliminates a lot of the issues that Codename Steam had, in the sense that you're never feeling like this sense of being robbed of a shot, because you can see the trajectory of it. You can see how it ricochets off walls and how the physics work. And that allows you to basically be in as much control as you're able to, depending on how good your eyesight is, really, and how large the distances are between the characters. One of the first things that kind of struck me, though, it was weird because the way the controls are set up is that the circle pad is used to kind of pan over the map, and you're using the D-pad to move your characters around. And it's actually, it works well, I think, because the D-pad allows you that kind of fine aiming with kind of the little taps of the buttons that the circle pad I don't think would be able to hone in on. So I think it's actually a smart choice, although it was a little disorienting when I started, because you have that natural urge to just move the character with the circle pad, because that's what most 3DS games do. But it really does allow that kind of accuracy, and I appreciate they made that design choice.
Does the formula of the game stay fresh throughout? Do they introduce different elements and things? Does it keep fresh, as they would say in Splatoon?
Yeah, as Callie and Marie would like to tout all the time. So there are 3 different kind of world maps, as it were, and as you progress, those all have different aesthetics to them, and new types of enemies will be introduced and that kind of stuff. And I think generally it does a good job of having new elements come into play. I think the weakness of SteamWorld Heist is that a lot of these maps, or all of these maps really, are randomly generated in the kind of roguelike sense that maybe some of the rooms are like designed by an actual human being, but their placement and the way that they're structured is kind of randomized. It reminds me maybe of Rogue Legacy, because in that game, like, there were a bunch of individual rooms, but the order in which those rooms were set up was always random every time you went into the castle. And so I think SteamWorld Heist is kind of sticking more to that format. And it feels maybe less like there's a lot of personality going on in there. Like, there's not much distinction or difference between a lot of these maps, and as such, like, it never feels like there's that much interesting going on with the map design. I think it works because you're always having to find cover, and the enemies are always like moving and placing themselves in smart places. but there's never any kind of unique elements. You know, like the maps don't feel like they have a gimmick to them or something like that. Like Codename Steam, there are lots of times where the map has this unique hook that's different and changes the gameplay and changes the way you approach it. Whereas I found with SteamWorld Heist, every time I went into a map, I would kind of approach it the same way. So maybe that's a little disappointing, but it's still a really fun gameplay loop. Like the feeling of pulling off a shot that rebounds like off the ceiling, off the ground, like into someone's head and just destroys them is brilliant. But it also, you know, has the drawback of when you fuck up, then, you know, it's the opposite feeling. So it's definitely an enjoyable time, and I think that they've just pulled it off really nicely. Like, I would certainly think that there are some elements that could be improved. For example, like when you go into the basically when you finish a map, you get a bunch of treasures that you collect as you go along, and you'll basically go to your inventory menu afterwards, and it'll say, like, if your inventory is full, you have to sell a certain number of things to make space for the new stuff. And I feel one of the problems is the different characters have different classes, so some of them can use certain weapons and some of them can't, and they don't tell you on that screen, like, who would be able to use this weapon or not. And so I'm kind of, like, randomly guessing, like, oh, shit, is this a weapon that I could use with this person? And I don't quite know, but I want to, like, keep it to find out. And so I have to end up...
So are you randomly spending money?
Well, it's not really randomly spending money. It's randomly selling off items to make room in my inventory. So I'm basically getting rid of old stuff to make up for new stuff, which I don't know whether I'm going to be able to actually use or not. And I think another problem is, like, you really, once you get down to using a few units, it doesn't feel like it's a smart idea to go back and use any others, because you're leveling them up, right? And as they level up, they get new abilities. One of the things I really enjoy is every level up, there's a new ability unlocked, which is great because it adds, like, one of the characters has this thing called Kill Shot, where if you kill an enemy with one shot, then you're able to take another shot after that turn is done. So it basically gives you the ability to kind of go through and take out multiple people at a time, and that's really helpful for some of the later stages. But yeah, going back to the character stuff, is as soon as you have, like, 3 level 7 guys, if you have one guy who's left on the side at 0, like, doesn't have as much health, can't move as far, it doesn't feel like it's worth it to go back and just train them up, because you'd end up just replaying through levels that you'd already done before, and you're not really making much progress. And so I did kind of have this single unit of, like, 3 to 4 characters that I consistently used again and again. And, you know, they were great, but, like, I didn't experience as much variety. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Codename Steam, is that because there's no leveling system in that game, it allows you to use whatever characters are relevant to the map, and you get that huge sense of variety and different gameplay styles. And as it was, like, I had one guy who had, like, a grenade launcher, the main character who has, like, a laser sight weapon, and then this kill shot guy who was able to shoot, like, multiple times. And then I never really changed it up. So
does it feel a bit more like Fire Emblem, where you kind of get your crew of characters and you stick with a certain group that start leveling up, and then by the end of the game, it's very difficult to go back to some guy you've left since chapter 2 or something?
Yeah, absolutely. It has definitely many more RPG elements thrown into the mix, which means that you can, you know, get into that situation where you're a little bit stuck and you're like, well, I'm just going to use these guys again and again. So... anyway, it's still great fun. I really enjoyed it, and it's certainly worth the asking price. It took me like maybe 11 hours to finish. And there's New Game Plus stuff. Also, like, I never really toyed with this, but if you up the difficulty and you're successful in a run, the amount of experience you get is increased. So that's probably like a quick way, if you want to, like, risk it later down the line and level up people faster, is to go ahead and, like, put the difficulty way up and see if you can hang with that stuff. So but yeah, definitely replayable, I guess. That's the benefit to not using characters on your first run, is, like, maybe you use them on your second run. But I'm not going to do that, because I've got lots of games to play about, and I can't just stick with one for the rest of my life. So the other little thing that I played was Her Story, and I think I said last time the Steam sale was on over Christmas, and I decided to pick up a lot of things that were being talked about in kind of Game of the Year discussions, and Her Story is one of those such games. It's only I mean, it's as long as you want it to be, really, because the premise is that you are at a desktop computer and you have these archive files about this murder that was committed and these interviews with this woman. And you are basically set the task of like typing in random search terms, seeing what videos pop up and watching them and just trying to figure out what the hell happened and what the real story is behind this stuff. And I was skeptical, I think, going into it because I'm not sure I'm a big fan of like the open-endedness of some games. The fact that like I could go through this and maybe not figure it out and be like, well, maybe I'll go to the internet now and see what they say about it. But it actually did a great job, despite the fact that I have complete free and utter control of the search terms I was putting in. It wove the narrative like really smoothly. And I was able to kind of pick up on things and figure out the people in her life and like the things that the way she was brought up and what had happened to her and all this. And there were revelations that came at points and I was like, oh my God, I totally didn't expect that to happen. And as you slowly unravel and figure it out, it's really rewarding. And it's one of those games where, and I don't really do this with any kind of title at all, is like, I literally had a notepad document up on the side while I was playing through it, and I was typing in like search terms that I could use later. I was kind of mapping out the story, like the timeline of what had happened, kind of thinking about like, okay, what should I look into? How does this connect to that? And it was fascinating, really was.
And are you just listening to her? Like, is there any point where you have to step in and make a decision, or you have to choose between X or Y and like stuff happens, or is it just literally storytelling and then you kind of take that in and walk away from the situation?
Yeah, it really is. It's basically just watching videos and clicking on them, and it'll tell you if a video you have already seen before, so you don't kind of repeat yourself and keep going over the same ones. There's also an option to kind of like save them.
Do you think it's fair to call it a game, or is it not even a game?
No, it depends on your definition, right? And I think we're in this era now where there are a lot more kind of variation.
That's what I mean, is that we kind of like associate games with interaction, and it doesn't feel like you're interacting.
Absolutely, there is interaction here because you have the agency to search for whatever you want. Like you can, whatever, like if there is a word that has been said by her in one of the tapes and you type it in, it will bring up like the search results for that. And the interesting thing it does is it only brings up the first 5 search results. So if there's something that happens later on in the timeline, it will bring up like the most early ones in the timeline. So you can't kind of necessarily make your way to like the end stuff instantly unless you're using multiple search terms at once. I absolutely think it's a game. I think that the way that you unravel that narrative is all to do with your own personal thoughts and feelings, and it's your decision when you walk away from it. Like there is an ending in a sense where someone will be like, oh, do you think you're done now? Do you feel like you figured out why all this happened? And you can say yes or no, whatever, and then the credits will roll. Okay. But I never felt the need to do that until I had kind of gotten to the point that I thought like I'm kind of content here. And really like I spent about 2 hours with it, but there's at least 50% more kind of video footage out there that I just didn't get to at all. And I'm sure there are hardcore people who just wanted to find absolutely every shred, every detail, but I picked up on what I thought was relevant and what I found interesting, and I think I kind of mapped it out in my head to the point where I was satisfied, and I walked away from it very, very happy. And it's one of those games that I think would actually work well on Wii U because of the touch interface and being able to type in very easily. I think it's more clunky on like a controller, and keyboard obviously makes a lot of sense. But it's a fascinating thing. And it's also interesting because the way that the desktop computer is set up, there's kind of like this filter over the top of it, which has like a reflection, almost a pseudo... like you're in like some office or something, you can see like the lights reflecting in the screen. And there's also like a reflection of a person in front of the screen. Just, you know, like in Metroid Prime when Samus sometimes gets those flashes and her face will appear in the visor. It's like that, but it actually like scared the shit out of me because it really bothered me when I watched the quick look for this, because they had the filter on, and like anytime like there's like some police sirens going by and it kind of flashes on the screen, you like suddenly see a face on the screen, and I'm like, oh god, who the fuck is that? Like it made me jump out my skin multiple times, and I didn't realize until later on there's actually an option to click to get rid of that filter. So as soon as I found that, I just switched it off because I can't like. I just want to focus on solving this mystery. I don't want to be randomly scared shitless by this face on the screen. Like, I don't know. That's one of those things that I'm like a fucking pussy when it comes to horror stuff. So anything will make me just lose my mind. But yeah, I don't think people should dismiss this as like a non-game or anything like that. I think it is absolutely belongs to be in the conversation and is a really fascinating way that the medium's being pushed forward. So absolutely, her story I would recommend. And I think that's pretty much it for the moment. Lots of things still to get through. I mean, we don't know how much Nintendo has in store for us this year with 3DS and Wii U, but I certainly have a backlog big enough to get me by, you know?
Oh yeah, we've both got lengthy backlogs to work away on.
Indeed. So yeah, that's I guess that's going to be our first segment. We will be back in just a bit with some of your emails. So don't go anywhere. We shall return.
And we're back. It's time for your emails because it is the second segment of the podcast. And before I forget, I must mention the email address, which is, of course, ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That's ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. Our first email this week is from Zach in St. Louis, Missouri, USA. Or as they say in the USA, they have like a two-letter abbreviation for every state.
Right, yeah.
So
like
Missouri
the periodic table.
See, I thought MO was Montana, but I knew St. Louis wasn't in Montana, so I had to look it up online, and I found out.
Well, there you go. Look, this Nintendo Life teaching you about geography all across the world.
Precisely.
Or just America, in this case.
So Zach says, hello MBZ and Bally, long-time listener, first-time writer. I'd like to start out by saying, Bally, you are a madman. Pikmin 4 and retro-made Metroid on launch of the NX? Think with your head, man, not your heart. I don't think they will bring Metroid out so quickly again after the backlash of Federation Force, and I don't think Pikmin will be a launch game. However, I do agree with MBZ's prediction for the two separate launches of the NX. Here are my predictions for 2016. So I guess we can just talk about these.
Sure, let's go one by one.
So first of all, his launch lineup for the NX is Pokemon, Mario, and Bayonetta 3.
That's weird. See, the Pokemon one is a hard one to judge, right? Because on the one hand, you have this install base of 50 million 3DSs, where there are a lot of people who are still waiting on that third version of the XY series, or like two versions, whatever they end up doing.
When did XY come out? 2012? 13?
No. 14? I think 14.
Okay.
No, 13. 13. Because 14 was
same year as
Sapphire.
Fire Emblem Awakening.
Right, yes, 2013 it was.
Okay.
So it has been quite a while, actually. Like, yes, they've put those remakes out and they took the year off last year, so there's certainly going to be a Pokemon game this year. I mean, there must be. But I'm not sure about NX. Like, on the one hand, it would be great because it would probably push a hell of a lot of systems for them. Pokemon probably one of the biggest, like, system sellers out there that still Nintendo has their name. But then, like, you can't really leave in the dark all those people who are kind of expecting that third version. So it's a weird one. I'm not sure how they're going to go on that. We'll see.
I think Mario is quite a strong shout, actually, that I definitely didn't mention.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
predictions.
EAD Tokyo kind of working on a 2-year schedule per game as far as it goes. Like a 3D Land, 3D World was a gap of 2 years, I believe, and the same with Galaxy 2 to 3D Land, maybe a little more on that end. But they're certainly working on something. I for certain believe that they stopped development on it as a Wii U title and basically transferred over to NX development. Question being, like, can they get that out for launch? Is that a feasible thing? I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that it would give them a very strong starting point out of the gate. But I don't know. They probably want to perfect it. That studio is all about perfection. I don't think they've really put a foot wrong at all so far. So we expect great things from them. So they have to deliver, I do feel.
And I agree with you, Zach, that maybe my Metroid shout out for a launch is from Retro is maybe a bit much, but I don't think Pikmin 4 is that out of the question for NX launch. Mainly, partly being because Pikmin 3 was meant to be a Wii U launch, and yes, that title doesn't have a massive fan base, but you know, it's a game, it's launched, got to get something out there. It's first party. I think that is still quite likely.
Yeah, it could be. In terms of Bayonetta 3, no, not a chance. That doesn't seem likely. I mean, I'm sure Nintendo and Platinum have this ongoing relationship. I'm sure Bayonetta 3 is something that could happen in the future, but when it comes to a launch game for NX, I highly doubt that's the case. I mean, fucking look at how many games Platinum are doing right now. Like, that studio, they're probably the fucking hardest working studio in the industry at the moment. Like, the amount of stuff that they have on their plate is slightly scary, so I don't think that is a smart thing to predict, but, you know, it's a wishful one.
I agree. The second prediction. Nintendo will get third-party support, but not from the mainstream parties, and focus more on the indie studios. Getting half-baked ports from other consoles with forced integration of the new controller doesn't really add any value. However, letting smaller studios make small games with the Nintendo roster may make for some decent games and new life into old forgotten characters. Here's hoping they will let Moon Studios, developer of Ori and the Blind Forest, have their way with Metroid.
Well, I'd love that, Bally. I'm not sure if that would be possible. I mean, Moon Studios are an independent developer. The relationship with Microsoft was one of, I think, Microsoft publishing that game on Xbox. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're kind of tied in with them, but I think maybe if they have a good relationship with Microsoft, they would stick there. But this is kind of like banking on my wishful thinking, I think, from last episode about the idea that Nintendo could get in bed with indies a bit more and maybe trust them a little bit more with their characters. I definitely think that, that's a hopeful one, but I would like to see it happen. So,
I have no doubt that this prediction would make some amazing games that we would love. I just question.
Yeah.
I question the sales success of those projects.
Really? Well, how would that be? Because I feel like if you have the Nintendo IP on a product like that, it gives it a more likely chance of selling well. When you say, I don't know.
Good point. Yeah, done well, I think that could happen. And I guess it's not even so much the game, it's the marketing. And if they put their muscle behind it, then sure, I think it could be quite successful. It's just a question whether they would want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the decision would be made by NCL, and like, as far as I'm concerned, those executives in those Japanese board meeting rooms are probably not the kind of gentlemen who would let any random Western independent studio have their way with any of their beloved IP as they cling so tightly to them. But then again, you know, you take a look at the direction Kimishima is going and making sure that Nintendo IP perpetrate other media. So at this point, maybe they're struggling to that extent that they would need to. So we will see.
Third prediction, the NX gets backwards compatibility for the Wii U and the 3DS with the 3D off. I think this will be a way to bring all of those people that skipped the Wii U since they were either confused or unimpressed over to the new system and have that back catalogue ready. It might also ease the purchase price of the console if they can get a few games for less dosh. Furthermore, I don't think that Nintendo will make it a habit of re-releasing HD remasters.
So this really is the big one, isn't it? It's like whether they will opt to have the backward compatibility
I
for
could
the
not
current
be in
install
more
base.
disagreement to this prediction, actually.
No, yeah, I think you mentioned last time that you did not think.
Yeah,
that would
I
be the
think it's
case.
going to be a clean cut, and the clean cut allows them to do two things, one of which is HD remasters. And
Yes.
it's not just remasters, I think they will try and slip in more content like we have mentioned before in the show. And secondly, it allows them to make the most impressive, backwards eShop ever. Like
Yeah.
all Nintendo systems, well, as many as can work, obviously, but as many games, as many systems in there as possible, potentially including stuff like 3DS and Wii U. So I just don't see, and I do think that it would be added cost to make it backwards compatible. And if the NX is anything like we've guessed with this whole handheld home console thing, I think they need to keep the cost as low as possible.
Also, a little pet peeve of mine. Can we please stop saying HD remasters? Because these games were all originally in HD. It drives me fucking insane when the media are like, oh yeah, the HD remaster of The Last of Us. Hello? The Last of Us was on PlayStation 3. It was in HD. Can we just call them remasters, for fuck's sake?
But isn't so when they were first turned from standard to HD, weren't they remastered in HD?
You're right, yes.
And then the one after that is HD remastered.
No, that's fucking bullshit. This is
that kind of makes
nonsense.
sense in a weird
It doesn't.
way,
It makes no sense. It's nonsense, utter bullshit. I'm not down with it. All these people are fucking insane. Stop saying HD remasters. They were already in HD.
So they should just be called remakes.
Yeah, exactly. It's absurd. Anyway, that's just my
also,
annoyance.
For Nintendo, stuff like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess weren't in HD.
Right, exactly. That's fine. You can call it Wind Waker HD because an HD version of it never existed before.
Okay.
So that it was fine the last generation when they had Shadow of the Colossus and Eco and all those collections in HD because yes, those were originally PlayStation 2 games, 480p. They didn't go any higher, and so that makes sense. But now, like Devil May Cry HD, no, it's it was beforehand. I feel like I want to agree with you. I also want to bring up the point that I don't think many people have talked about, but always stays in the back of my mind, is this fact that they have this baggage when it comes to controllers. And yes. I think one of the things with Wii U that was so crazy, like to the benefit of people who owned Wiis, but the fact that you can use so many controllers is all at once convenient for the hardcore, but also incredibly alienating to anyone who isn't in the ecosystem, in the sense that you can use the Wii Remote, you can use the Classic Controller Pro, you can use the Wii U Gamepad, you can use the Nunchuck with Wii Remote, you can use the Wii U Pro Control. Like, the number of inputs and things that are options within the Wii U library, let alone just backwards compatibility for Wii, is kind of astonishing. Like, the number of games that you can just use the Wii Remote in as an additional controller, and even some games that outright require it, is a little frightening. And so if you're going to bring all that baggage with you, does that mean, like, because some Wii U games are Wii Remote compatible, that you still keep the Wii Remote as a viable controller? And I'm like, no, there's no way the Wii Remote is still a viable controller for them in 2016, 2017 at all. Like, it doesn't make logical sense. So that is a big sticking point that makes me believe that they might, for the first time in a long time, ditch backwards compatibility.
Fourth prediction, simultaneous launch for the NX worldwide.
Man, I would love that.
I agree. I think that'll happen.
I think generally they have been better at doing this. The Wii U was maybe 2 or 3 week delay for us.
But the Wii wasn't?
No, the Wii was maybe over maybe a month, maybe a little less. I think Wii and Wii U are both similar time periods. So I do think that, a simultaneous launch is more likely. I don't think it will necessarily be 100% simultaneous, but maybe a week, 2 week gap is a likely scenario. It's not like the GameCube. It's not like, it launches in North America in November and then we get it in March or April or whenever it came out. So we're behind those days, I think. But I do agree that is definitely a likely situation.
And now for his way out there prediction. Nintendo will announce a new Mega Man game forgotten by the publishers, let to rot by his developers. With all the retro love that has been going around lately, I'm calling it right now, right here, new Mega Man game. Call me a loony, but those are my predictions.
Well, Zach, you're a loony. Thank you for sending us your predictions. Some good stuff in there, I think. Some stuff that lines up with us, some stuff we may not quite agree with, but who can tell? It's all about blindly going into the future. So predictions are all about the fun times. So
we've got more predictions.
Oh man, lay them on us.
Talking about all the hype and the predictions, it's John from Orlando, who obviously co-hosts the Nintendo Show.
Yes.
Definitely go check out that show on iTunes. It's a great show. We like John.
We
Hey
do.
guys, I just got to say that MBZ's stance on Western third parties had me almost shouting at my iPhone in agreement. Nintendo can't rely on the EAs and Activisions of the world to draw an audience back, because why would they leave the current ecosystem where they can already get that? It'd be nice to have that sort of stuff available on the NX, but new unique offerings need to be the priority. They can't be a Me Too system. I also 100% agree on the Japanese developer comments. This just makes much more sense when looking for differentiating software from the other guys. The emphasis on a supposed handheld component makes a lot of sense for Japanese devs as well. I'll also give a resounding Miiverse yeah to your comments about Nintendo being the last console maker. How funny and awesome would that be? Get it started. Hashtag last to turn the lights out, or some better variation thereof. Okay, how about a question? Let's say Bally is wrong, again, about no new 3DS or Wii U announcements in 2016. What is one game for each system that you'd like to see announced? Sorry about any spelling or grammatical errors. I sent this in an adrenaline rush of agreement right after I listened to the show from my iPhone.
Well, John, thank you for coming down on the side of sense here, joining me in my thoughts.
I'm sticking on Team Colin. I'm on Team Colin Moriarty.
Bally, you're a fucking
Team
crazy
Colin.
man. Fucking crazy person. So, first things first, I think it's interesting, when I just talked last time about how Nintendo would be the last console maker. I'm not sure, Bally, if you saw today on Twitter some comments from Michael Pachter going around, how he said that Nintendo...
Really?
Yes, how he said that Nintendo he didn't think would leave the console market until they had truly and utterly failed. And
yeah, but remember, I unfollowed him because I fell out with him. So I
no, I mean I'm not following Michael Pachter.
Okay,
this was just
checking.
making the rounds in my Nintendo news and stuff like that. And so he was apparently talking about how Nintendo themselves probably don't consider Wii U a failure, and how the only time they would consider it a failure is when they're literally selling nothing. And I found that interesting, and the fact that he's kind of come down on the side of Nintendo are very proud and very much wanting to stick it out as long as they possibly can. And if that means not doing spectacularly but still keeping afloat within the industry, I think they'll do that. And it was just funny to see him kind of come to that realization as well. Being
last man standing.
Yeah,
last man standing.
Yeah. But anyway, John's question about 3DS and Wii U games for 2016. Bally, do you have any for either system that you would like to see announced?
I'm going to sound like a stuck record here, but Advance Wars on the 3DS in the Fire Emblem Awakening engine. I just think it is just crying out to be made. I don't know what the developing costs would be, but come on, that engine is so goddamn beautiful. I
never really thought about it in that way, in the sense that they could repurpose the same engine, because it makes sense from the perspective that the Game Boy Advance games both used that same kind of sprite design, and clearly the same engine was running for both of those games. So that would be fascinating to see Advance Wars with that visual style to it, for sure.
But if Nintendo want to hold off and just release an NX Advance Wars, I'm not complaining about that either. But
right,
see.
Absolutely.
I'd definitely like to see that happen, and I don't think it's 100% out of the question, but I don't think it's that likely, to be honest.
No, absolutely. Is there any Wii U announcement for you, Barry?
Wii U. I don't know. I just want NX to come. I don't know. I want my Wii U Zelda, and then I want NX. I can't think of. I don't know. And all the games that everyone knows I want, like F-Zero, Metroid, Wave Race, or something. I'd like to save that for NX, but I can see myself really enjoying Advance Wars in that Fire Emblem Awakening engine. I just think it's such a great, and this is partly because I'm playing Fire Emblem Awakening right now and absolutely loving the art style. I just think it's absolutely incredible. So that's why I suggested that.
See, it's hard because on the one hand, like I want to say some games, but then you also want them to kind of maybe keep it close to their chest. So I would like to play a 3DS Metroid game that isn't Federation Force. Like, that doesn't necessarily have to be a straight up 2D Metroid, but something that sticks closer to the blueprint and the DNA of what that series is, as opposed to this online multiplayer thing, right? Like, and I don't think it's likely, of course, because if you have a 3DS Metroid game already announced, like, they're not going to do another one. If they're going to save anything, it's going to be on NX. So that's one that is obviously wishful thinking. And Wii U wise, it's really difficult to think of something that I would want. You know what I'd love, which I probably is never going to happen, was like a real return to Monkey Ball. And that's not Nintendo, that's not first party, but like I feel that that's a series that has just, after the 2 GameCube entries, just fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
And I feel like a Wii U Monkey Ball would be really great. Like, it would... I'm not sure if it necessarily...
Tilt controls?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, the Wii Remote stuff in the Wii game was... It worked. I think
it was pretty good, actually. I did have a good time playing that.
So I think that they could, have that in there for people who want it, have traditional controls. I think you could maybe do something interesting with the gamepad in terms of like giving you a top-down display of the map screen or something to that effect. It could work quite well, I think, on the Wii U. So yeah, that's one that I would like. Kind of, if we're mirroring Wii U with GameCube, like in terms of like software library and the fact that like neither system sold that well, I think Monkey Ball is a cool one to go with. But obviously, yeah, that's a thing that Sega would have to greenlight, but we'll see.
Cool. Well, thanks, John. That was a good question.
Yes, indeed.
Next email is from Alex from Houston, Texas. Dear MBZ and Bally, I have a problem and I hope you two can give me some advice. Between my 3DS and Wii U, I own every main series Metroid game except for Other M, good choice, and I really want to get into the series in 2016. Ordinarily, I would start with the first game in the series, but as I am a relatively younger gamer, I'm 23, who didn't grow up with an NES, I'm afraid that diving into the original Metroid would be too overwhelming and difficult and would turn me away from the subsequent games as a whole. So my question for you is whether either of you share the compulsion to start from a series beginning, or have you gotten over it, or do you still feel the same way as me?
Well,
there's another question, but we can do this one first.
Yeah, let's do this one first. So I felt this compulsion around the time I got my PlayStation 3. There are a lot of series that I'd missed out on, and I wanted to kind of play through all of the entries in those series and start from the start and kind of try and get a look at them and see them as they went, like through the DNA and how they worked and everything. And I did that with Uncharted. I got the first Uncharted and played through all of those, which I think was a good experience.
They're all amazing games. Like
they are, but like I think certainly Uncharted 1 is skippable. Like it's actually good in terms of, for me personally, I hadn't really played many HD games at that point. And so though that game doesn't look great now, if you're comparing it to the current landscape, it fucking blew my mind how good it looked. And so I think I appreciated it more on that level for the fact that I was able to play through it first. I think that I didn't necessarily need to, though, because like it's more of a setup. It doesn't like do a lot of the amazing things that the second game does and then goes on to in the third game. And I also kind of did the same thing with Infamous, where like Infamous 2 was already out when I had a PS3, but I wanted to play the first one first and kind of see how that went. And I enjoyed doing that, but I have gotten to a point now where I just don't feel the need or compulsion to anymore. Like, Mass Effect Andromeda comes out probably sometime at the end of this year. And Mass Effect has always been a series I've been interested in and maybe wanted to jump in at some point. But I'm kind of thinking, like, maybe I just want to have a clean break. Maybe I don't need to know all that stuff in the past. There's going to be loads of people jumping on board with this new one. Maybe I'll just do that and see how it goes. So I've become less like pedantic about it, and I'm not so wrapped up in being like, God, I have to know everything. I need to be up on all this stuff. Same thing with Assassin's Creed. I was very much intending to like do the first one. Then I looked up and people were like, the first Assassin's Creed's not that great. Do the second one. I got the second one, and then I hardly even played it because Assassin's Creed is terrible. But anyway, Bally?
I think I do have a lot of strange gaming compulsions, but I wouldn't necessarily associate them with this question. They're more to do with having a backlog and getting through that backlog. And as absurd as my gaming compulsions can sound, I think there is actually a really good way of getting through your backlog, especially when some games in your backlog are more appealing to play than others. So that's one issue. But aside from that, I don't think I've really played many games because I felt, I need to play this before I can play the next in the series. Apart from, I definitely, I believe I started playing Xenoblade Chronicles once we knew about Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yeah.
And I didn't exactly plan on playing X, but I definitely wanted to play Xenoblade because of how much you had loved it, and other people I'd listened to on podcasts and things had loved that game. So that was definitely a game I did feel compulsion to play.
Right.
Secondly, like a game like in a similar vein, a game like Fire Emblem Awakening that I'm playing now, I definitely do want to play that game before Fire Emblem Fates comes out, because from everything we've seen, Fates is just going to be a grander, more epic, incredible experience. And I think it might be harder to go back to Awakening in many ways after a game like Fire Emblem Fates. And
I think a lot of both of those games are very similar. And so it's definitely one of those things where it's like, if I've had this superior experience, do I really want to go back for the inferior one?
Exactly.
I think that's what I felt about Infamous as well, is like, maybe if I'd played the second game first, I wouldn't have gotten as much out of Infamous 1. But as it stands, Infamous 1, I probably prefer on a personal level, just because it was my introduction to it, and made a greater impact because of it.
Exactly. And I definitely don't have a problem with playing inferior games. Like, we've both gone back to so many old Nintendo games that you could argue, if you're a sort of modernist snob, that are definitely inferior, that are mechanically weaker, are tougher for all the wrong reasons, and all these things. And like, yes, they have flaws, but there's still definitely an appeal to those games for me to want to go back to them and experience them. And definitely the Virtual Consoles obviously helped tremendously with that, and that is something I still really value and enjoy. So yeah, those are my gaming compulsions. I wouldn't say I'd ever dive into a series at a strange point just because I had to do like the right order or something. I don't know. That's just not me.
Yeah, I think also with Nintendo, it's much different. When it comes to, like, both of us want to play as many Zelda games as we can, but it's not necessarily that we have to play them in a specific order, because I don't think they're that strictly tied by an overarching storyline or anything, right?
And
whereas
we're not at all. We're going in a really random order, aren't we?
Yeah, we're just going however we please. And I do think that it's different when it comes to the other platforms in the series that have been established, especially in the last generation, where they are far more story-driven. And I think you get more out of it by playing from entry to entry. Whereas, like, if you play Metroid Fusion, then Metroid Prime, like, I don't think it really affects much. Like, there is this interconnective tissue, but it's not as much of the focus, so it doesn't really make a huge difference.
So the second question: where do you recommend I start with the Metroid series? Should I suck it up and start with the original, or is there a better jumping off point and then eventually work my way back to it? P.S. As much as I'd love to hear this turn into another Fusion versus Prime argument, as I'm sure it would, given your passions for both games, I would like to respectfully remind you that the question isn't about your favourite games, but what the best game to start with would be for me. Thanks again.
Well, I appreciate Alex bringing that up, because that well could have happened.
I have a unique twist on his suggestion, but
I think I'm probably thinking of the exact same thing, and it's ironic considering the fact that we haven't played it yet, but the fact that we're planning to play it yet.
But I wasn't going there. But
well, see, so for me, the way to nail this easily is that you can start with Metroid Zero Mission. And by starting with Metroid Zero Mission, not only do you get the genesis of the series, because it's a remake of the original game, but you get a game that is way more playable, a game that, from all accounts, a lot of people have said is one of the best games in the series, and kind of gives you that introduction to what Metroid really is, about that exploration and that isolation, and it also controls incredibly well, because it's after Super Metroid and GBA by that point. Well, I've played bits of it at times in the past, so I know it does control very well. It is undoubtedly probably the best place to start with Metroid, I would say. I feel like after playing Zero Mission, you can go back and see Super Metroid, and then go to Prime, and then do all that stuff. But I think if you're someone who's not played any Metroid at all, the best place is probably Zero Mission.
I would definitely say Super Metroid. And I think that I'm not talking about plot or anything like that, but if you want the most quintessential Metroid experience that's traditional, and I do think that when you are playing games like Metroid, if you do have the option, perhaps playing a more traditional game first might be actually the best thing. That kind of goes against what I was saying earlier, but I honestly think Super Metroid is just such a great starting point, because I think Fusion and Prime, as much as we both love them, they are both two separate evolutions of Super Metroid. So here we are.
They are.
So Fusion specifically takes that 2D element and just makes it slicker, faster paced, more linear, I already said slick, but it's just I don't want to say enjoyable, because it's not more enjoyable in general. It's just easier to play, I'd say. That's a better way to describe it. It's easier to play. It takes that idea of from Super Metroid and expands on it. And then, in a completely separate way, Prime just completely expands on Super Metroid in its own way. It turns the 2D exploration of Super Metroid into 3D and does that incredibly well. So I think Prime and Fusion are just great games in terms of evolutions from Super Metroid. I'm not going to comment on Zero Mission, because I definitely want to play that before I kind of work it into this sort of formula I've created. But I do think that Super Metroid for me would be a good starting point. And I think that I keep forgetting this, but you know my gaming history better than I do, Emblem. So what did I play Fusion or Super Metroid first?
You played Fusion first, because it was part of the Ambassador program on the 3DS.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I actually went the opposite way, but
you did.
I would still recommend Super Metroid, because it's just an absolutely great game.
It is fantastic. It's a good option. Maybe you should do that first, and then wait until we do something with Zero Mission at some point. Not that I'm foreshadowing or anything, but that could be a thing. Anyway, is that it? Do we have anything else?
That's all the emails for this episode. But again, we always need more. So do send all your emails, all your comments, all your advice, all your requests for advice, all your predictions, all your mishaps, anything you want. Send them to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That's ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com.
Yes, indeed. So thanks for all those. We will be back in the third and final segment. So don't go anywhere. We shall return very soon.
We'll be rewarding you. Can't stop us, grind us down, or top us. Ready now. Water is our desire. Steam us. Unite, a call to arms. We fight thunder through the stars. SteamWorld torn apart.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the third final segment of the show. As Valley alluded to earlier, we're going to be talking a little bit kind of, not necessarily news, but bits of rumors floating around. You know, it's January, it's 2016. Nintendo said that this is the year when they're going to talk about NX. And it seems like they're the only ones who are not talking about NX right now, because there's lots of things going around, rumors and other such stuff. And a couple of other game potential rumors going as well. So we're going to have a rumble through those, kind of move our way through this stuff and see what we find. So, Bali, where do we want to begin here? Do you want to start with the NX stuff?
Yeah, I think everyone just wants to hear about NX right now. I certainly do, and so why don't we jump off with that?
All right. So I think one of the more interesting ones that has come about is a tweet from a writer for the Wall Street Journal. He's Takashi Mochizuki. Oh God, I can't just take a Japanese name and say it without thinking about it first. Mochizuki. He has been doing a lot of stuff recently regarding Nintendo. I think he was translating some of their investor meetings, and he was all up on the DNA announcement and all that stuff. He's a very trustworthy source, and he tweeted about an interesting report that NX may work with smartphones, PCs, and even rival consoles such as the PlayStation 4, which is a little strange on the surface, and it kind of leads people to wonder, like, what does that mean? Like, does this... I mean, Nintendo have outright said that this is going to be a traditional games console, or it's going to be a piece of hardware, right? I think we know that much. So
well, it's also going to be unique and unlike anything they've ever done before.
Yeah. So the question really is like, what does that sort of interaction with other devices really mean? Like, does that just mean that you're accessing account stuff on other devices? Does it mean there's some streaming functionality? I'm very confused as to, like, because if it's a piece of hardware, then clearly it has to have stuff that is within its own infrastructure, and having stuff on PS4 would, I don't know, it would go against that, right?
I would think it's some sort of app that you can get on smartphones, you can get on your PC, your laptop, whatever, and in some way an Xbox One or a PS4 might be able to run that app. I don't see why that. I can't see that being out of the question, actually. So that's where I would see that rumor going if it is true.
But I don't know why it would work in that way. You know, it seems very weird for Nintendo to suddenly get in bed with Sony or Microsoft at all in that sort of realm. I feel like they have, in more recent years, talked about the fact that they don't see themselves as being in competition with those guys anymore. So perhaps on that level, it makes a little more sense. But it's also a little disconcerting. I don't know. It just feels weird to me, don't you think?
It is tough, and you're right, because half of their market is in a big competition with Microsoft and Sony. It's come the big Nintendo hits, they need to release at time, like stuff like Mario Maker, Splatoon, that kind of capture the wider games industry. They definitely have a space that is rivaling Sony, Microsoft, but at the same time there are so many more small and niche games and other stuff that they're obviously planning on doing. The appeal of Amiibo, for example, that doesn't rival them in any way whatsoever. So it's really weird, the idea that they would have something that worked on a rival's console.
Yeah, it's... I don't know what to think of it. I don't know, like, how this has come about, where this information is really coming from. But it's something that I want a bit more information on before I even give it consideration as a feasible thing, honestly.
And you mentioned off mic that there is an investors meeting on the 2nd of February, did you say?
Yes, yeah.
So who knows what could be announced then?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that NX will be addressed there. I don't know if anything substantial will be said, because I think if Nintendo want to build hype for this machine, then they certainly have to create an event for it and have something dedicated, something that is 100% this is, be here at this time, at this date, watch this space, we're going to have some big news to put out.
Surely there's a direct in the pipeline for, February, I want to say.
One would imagine. Jose Otero on NVC put his foot down and said it's happening in January, and we're pretty much at the end of January now, and it's not happened. So I don't think that is viable.
What's the launch date for Star Fox?
Star Fox is April. I can't remember what date specifically.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe there won't be a direct until the end of March, say.
Maybe. I would like to imagine a February one, because really traditionally over the past few years it has been in the January-February spot. There's been at least one. But then again, like, we have to remember that Nintendo are redoing the Nintendo Direct in some way. Like, we don't actually know what that means in terms of the setup and how it runs and what it looks like. But they said that they are changing things regarding the Direct. So it may be that they now start doing a different schedule for them to coincide with that. Who knows? But still interesting. And yeah, I'm fascinated by all the stuff coming out. The other NX related rumor that we can talk a little bit about, which I think has been debunked as not being necessarily anything to write home about, is this company called GFK. There's some sort of market research thing. They basically put out this survey regarding the NX, which had supposed details on it about specifics with the system, and stuff surrounding streaming in 4K, and it said 900p/60 FPS, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because on it, like, that sort of stuff is much more on a game-to-game basis, you know? Like, you don't say that a system runs everything at a set frame rate and a set resolution, because games are different and they run at different specs depending on, you know, the scope and scale, etc.
It's also very unlike Nintendo to, you know, chase the high end in terms of specs and stuff like that.
It is.
It's very strange, especially if the NX is anything within sort of our price guesses, which was sort of, I don't know, under $300, I'd say, at least for one part.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't strike me as a thing that they care about, but then this doesn't seem to be like coming from necessarily the most reliable thing, you know? I don't know. It seems a little weird. The one point at which Nintendo kind of addressed that stuff was Sakurai in the Smash Brothers Direct. I think it might have been the 50 Facts video. But he started talking technical stuff about frame rate and resolution, which I guess he cares deeply about that stuff, because Smash Brothers as a fighting game wants to be a high frame rate as possible. And you know,
you gotta know the frames so you can get the moves in at the right time, you know.
Right, frame data, all that stuff. It's very important, very important indeed. But yeah, I don't think we need to necessarily dig too deep into this one, because all really points to it not really actually having any credible information. But what it does signify that, like, there's a lot of NX stuff floating around right now, and it does seem that there's a lot of interest in what Nintendo are going to be doing with it. There was also, I think, a rumor or someone on Reddit claiming to be an Ubisoft employee. No, it wasn't Reddit. It was some other website, but they were claiming to be an Ubisoft employee, was saying that they recently got NX kits into the office, and he said that he had a quick look at one of them that was running, a couple of demos that I guess Nintendo sent along with the system, and he said that it looked really good, and it had impressed him to a degree in terms of visual fidelity and that sort of stuff.
So detailed.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's something that we can go on as any sort of thing, but like there's lots of just little snippets of people saying stuff floating around right now, and it's hard to kind of sift through the real from the fantasy, you know?
And how good is it that, like, everyone is talking about Nintendo again? Like, it's not been like this for quite some time, and it's pretty exciting, just the amount of hype with that there always is with any new console, but it's come Nintendo's time again, and it's just this absolute hype train that's building.
Yeah, it really is. It's pushing on through, and there's oh boy, I'm I'm fascinated to see how they reveal this thing. I think that's Nintendo. I feel want to bring it to E3 this year, but I think that they would also benefit from highlighting the NX beforehand and trying to make a day where everyone is talking about them, because I think that, yeah, they'd probably be making headlines at E3, but there's also other stuff happening and they wouldn't necessarily be 100% in the spotlight, So I think that they do need to have something event-wise to dedicate. But we'll see. Also, there was some stuff that Kimishima had been talking about regarding the new year. He said that he wanted Nintendo's operating profit to increase basically 4 times their operating profit from the current fiscal year, which is ambitious, to say the least. We do know that they have the mobile project in the works. Amiibo clearly seems to be going from strength to strength, and if NX does as they hope it does, then potentially we could be seeing some better sales for Nintendo. But do you think that's possible, Bal? You think 4 times the amount of money they made this year for the next one is a feasible feat?
If the NX comes out, I guess it is. So maybe it's hinting that it would have to come out this year, or
maybe Kimishima is showing his hand there. Saying that.
But isn't the fiscal year different? So it runs until like next March or something.
It does, yes.
So...
And if we're going by my prediction of the console portion coming out in spring of 2017, then that would certainly help.
Yeah. So I think the likelihood of at least getting some part before March is increasingly likely if that's what Kimishima has said. And it's pretty exciting. And I agree with you that it's going to be 2 parts that will come out, autumn versus spring, or like winter versus spring. And that could be pretty exciting and different. And like the media might latch onto that and go wild. And like, the mainstream media might be like, whoa, there's 2 different parts to this, and that's something to write home about. It
also allows them to kind of roll the hype train behind their product for a longer period of time when you have two launches. So potential.
It feels like when Smash Brothers came out, where we got the 3DS version, and we were just so excited about that and had an absolutely whale of a time. And then after that hype had died down, it was like, oh my god, now the Wii U version's coming, and we got completely excited about that again. I feel like it'd be like Christmas twice almost, wouldn't it?
Right, yeah.
Like having,
basically.
Autumn or winter, and then again in spring.
Yeah. No, it really would. I mean, for a Nintendo fan's perspective, it would be great. I'm interested to see how other people react to that and whether they think that it's something they'd be interested in. But here's the real question, Bally. Here's the real question.
Oh boy.
Will you watch a Nintendo anime? Because Mr. Kimishima also said that he was keen to use their characters, as we've heard before, about the theme park stuff and in films, but he also says anime. Now, Bally, we get some kind of Zelda anime. Are you down? Are you down to get Japanese?
I'm gonna try it. I think anyone would try it. And
right.
I've got the anime app, the anime channel on my new 3DS.
Yeah.
To watch it on.
Yeah.
But I guess the fact that there's already Kirby anime that exists that's on that thing, and it is terrible.
Well, I don't think that's an anime. I think that's a cartoon. That's the thing. I think that it was a Western product as opposed to a Japanese one. As far as
it's pretty Japanese.
Is it? I don't know.
It's just not very good. I think it is obviously very kiddie. I think if it's aimed at someone who's not just like the lowest tier of children, I think it could be quite entertaining, and I'd be interested.
If it works on multiple levels, akin to Pixar movies or all that kind of stuff,
or Star Wars or something, like it has to appeal to, like Zelda. Zelda appeals to all ages, and if it can replicate that appeal, then absolutely it would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he also mentioned that their big characters would be involved in mobile apps, maybe to sway the investors to some degree who are worried about like Miitomo not necessarily being what they wanted out of the DNA deal. So I think that there will be some kind of Mario product on a mobile phone. I highly doubt it will be some endless runner nonsense, because I feel like Nintendo are above just copycatting crappy mobile shit. But I'm very interested to see what they actually do on that end. I'm sure we'll find out, because it's supposed to be 5 mobile initiatives happening this year.
WarioWare has to happen.
Oh, God, be great. Would be.
I feel like that would. Like your average person who plays video games on a mobile phone would probably look at WarioWare and be like, "That looks crazy in Japanese. I don't really want to touch it." Sort of thing.
It may be a little.
And I mean, that was my response to it when I was younger and it first came out. It's just like, that looks crazy and not something I want to play. But then when you actually do play it, it's so Moorish and like awesome.
Yeah, totally. It's God. When was the last WarioWare? It's been a while now.
Well, the last proper one, because there was that Game and Wario on Wii U, which we didn't buy on that, and that's not proper.
It's not something I'm very interested in.
Was the last proper one the Wii one then?
There was DIY. I want
DIY,
to say,
but that's not really a proper one either, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd say Wii if you want proper one.
Sure.
It's not the strongest, but yeah.
No, it's not. It's not. It was fun. I mean, remember that mini game with Wind Waker?
That's like the thing that sticks out most clearly in my head with that game.
Yeah,
it's like putting
it's
the
like
Wiimote on your head
and
gliding onto that platform before Forest Haven. Like that is just like what you remember of that game.
It was so fucking cool.
Yeah,
that's the thing I think I like most about the WarioWare series is the 9-volt stuff, where they implement these weird twists on Nintendo games. That was pretty great. That's weird. Like a version of Wind Waker in some senses was running on a Wii, like kind of crazy
for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, for 10 seconds. But there you go. So a couple of other things that we may want to dip into to talk about. One of them would be Paper Mario, apparently on Wii U is being teased. So, well-known Nintendo blogger, writer Emily Rogers gave a tweet out that she had heard from some sources and a couple of other people had heard that there was to be a new Paper Mario title being worked on for the Wii U, and that apparently it is currently in the phase of localization, and it is potentially going to be slated for release this year. Now, Bally, this would kind of put a stake in the heart of your theory that there would not be any new 3DS or Wii U games announced for 2016. I
said any like top tier or like main games, and this definitely would count as one of those.
It would indeed. So what do you make of this rumor?
I mean, I'm not invested in Paper Mario. It's just not something I've tried out yet. I definitely mean to try it out at some point, so I'm not personally that excited about it. I'm a bit gutted my predictions broken, but
potentially, yeah.
On top of that, I'm worried that it pushes back the launch of the NX. You know, it worries me that there are other games that are unannounced that are coming that we don't know about. There are other than, you know, Fire Emblem, Star Fox, Shin Megami Cross, Pokken Tournament. I can't really think of any others. But other than those games, it's a bit worrying that is more stuff coming out for Wii U and new 3DS, because you kind of want them to invest all that time and effort into the NX, you know, like
the fact that Intelligent Systems are working on a Wii U title as opposed to an NX one. I mean, this doesn't rule out the fact that they're working on an NX game, because we know Intelligent Systems have multiple teams, and you know they've made 3 Fire Emblem games and Codename Steam and like all this other stuff in have a short period of time. Like they make the Pushmo series as well. Like they do a lot of shit, and I have no doubt that they have a team that's working on an NX game. So I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about that. But the fact that yes, there is still Wii U active development going on may, you know, corroborate the idea that again the console form of the NX will not be out this year.
Are you big on Paper Mario? What are your views on it?
So I like Paper Mario a lot from a concept standpoint. The only one I've actually played is Sticker Star, which isn't really a traditional Paper Mario game because it removes all the RPG leveling system stuff, replaces it with this sticker battle system, and it really turns into an obscure adventure game as opposed to like what Paper Mario really is. And like I've played a bunch of the Mario and Luigi RPG stuff, so I am familiar with like the systems of being able to actively take part in those battles as opposed to just, choosing attacks and going with them. So I feel like I've played Paper Mario, even though I haven't actually played like the original ones, the 64 and then Thousand Year Door on GameCube.
Yeah, we should definitely go back and try out like the N64 or something.
Yeah, so I've watched a Let's Play
console.
of both the 64 game and Thousand Year Door, so I know those games, but I just haven't played them myself. 64 is a super cool game, and I definitely want to go back and play. Could be another candidate for a backlog club at some point.
Yeah.
Seems like a smart one to do. But it really seems like with Paper Mario, they have not gone back to what made those two first games that great, because Super Paper Mario diverged with this different like focus on 3D and changing perspectives, and it wasn't necessarily what people wanted. It was more platforming focused, which was a little weird. And then obviously Sticker Star was just this whole can of worms that was a little bit of a mess, despite the fact that it looked beautiful and was gorgeous on 3DS. I feel like if this is going to be a Wii U Paper Mario, I think they're going to have a return to form in the sense that they're going to have partner characters that Mario fights with and all that stuff, and just make it more of a traditional like leveling up Japanese RPG style of game. And I would be excited to play that, honestly. Like, I think that it's maybe a time in which we've had a lot of Mario RPGs recently, like on 3DS, and none of them have really hit the spot. It's weird that they've kind of been lacking in that quality that the older games were known for. And I think that they have an opportunity here to kind of return back to that peak with a new game. Do you think you'd play it if this came out on Wii U, Bal? You think you'd dive in for a new Paper Mario?
I wouldn't want to go into it blind. I'd like to try one of the other Paper Marios first,
Okay.
and then see what I think of that before jumping in. And yeah, maybe N64 Paper Mario Backlog Club could be something for the future, but
Could be indeed.
we'll see.
We shall see. All right, so let's move on to the last little bit here, which is they announced some stuff regarding the Twilight Princess HD Amiibo. And usually we wouldn't want to talk about Amiibo here because we don't think Amiibo are relevant or fun or useful. But this one could be, or potentially had the ability to be, because there was originally a report that came out of, I think, Amazon France, that a new dungeon would be unlocked by use of the Twilight Princess Amiibo. People lost their minds, because, understandably, that feels the most like kind of locking DLC behind a plastic figure thing that Nintendo have done. But the truth of the matter is that what it really unlocks is not necessarily quote-unquote a dungeon. It's a thing called Trial of the Beast, in which you basically go through different floors and kill a bunch of enemies and get points and have a score and shit. So essentially it's the Cave of Ordeals again, and that's that. Which actually makes me happy, because I don't think that that's anything, that great. It doesn't seem like it's actually that interesting for me personally, anyway.
Yeah, I was really quite concerned when I saw the whole headlines, like, gonna be a dungeon in Zelda. I was like, oh my, don't do this to me. Because I'm on the fence about this game in any case, and like, the idea of there being a fully fledged dungeon that was then behind the paywall of the Amiibo would have just been really annoying.
Totally.
And as far as I'm aware, the Amiibo comes with the game anyway, no matter what, which is really weird.
I think that the physical copy is only being sold with Amiibo, yeah.
which that's just weird. And like,
It is,
I
yeah.
don't need an amiibo, and
I don't
know.
need the price of that game to be bumped up needlessly because there's one packed in, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's currently £45 on Amazon. I was expecting to pay 30 quid for a physical copy, you know?
Precisely, and it's I. No matter how much I see that game, it just doesn't quite look good enough yet.
No, it doesn't.
And we're not seeing it in engine or anything. We're not seeing it in real life or the flesh or whatever. So maybe we're still being a bit harsh on that. But I don't remember saying this about Wind Waker HD. I think everyone was a bit more hyped. They were all like, "Wow, it looks really good! Like, look how they redid that and redid this and all of this," and it just doesn't have that same excitement going for it.
No, I also think it's because Twilight Princess just isn't as good a looking game from
It's
the
just
off.
a murky ass game, is what
Yeah,
it is.
it's muddy.
just so
It's very muddy. I still like the game a huge amount, but like I would be the first to say the visuals are probably the least impressive aspect of that game. Unfortunately, it's just the way that they decided to go back to that realistic style, and it just has not aged well at all. It's it's just some visual aesthetics do better than others over time, and clearly this is one that just has not held up to scrutiny. So anyway, you can also apparently use other amiibo on the game which are related to Zelda. So you can put Link and Toon Link to get arrows, and Zelda gives you hearts and shit. Ganondorf, apparently, which is very interesting, will make you take double damage in the game, which, if you're playing through in hero mode, stacks as well. So you can basically be playing through taking 4 times damage, which sounds kind of hellish, to be honest. But I don't know, Twilight Princess isn't that tough a game anyway, so maybe that would be a cool wrinkle to add. I don't know. Seems neat.
Yeah, I mean, they sound like really generic sort of amiibo ideas that Nintendo have been doing, like, to stick stuff in game, and it's just this terrible trend where the amiibos were created for the sake of amiibos, and now Nintendo are thinking of all these weird and wonderful ways of shoehorning them in games, and it's just all a bit like, I think Mario Maker is probably top of the hill when it comes to implementation of amiibo, and I think that there's just been so much use of them in a poor way, like in a really kind of I don't like it. I'm not happy.
Do you think there is a possibility that there is currently a game in development which is purely amiibo focused, not like Animal Crossing board game bollocks, but a game that is like a Skylanders or a Lego Dimensions, where any amiibo can work with it, and it's like a, I don't know, kind of platform action
there
style
was that
thing.
Mario versus Donkey Kong game. I don't know if you saw.
Yes, yeah.
That. I believe that's very amiibo focused in terms of unlocking levels.
You're right, yeah.
Would I want to see some? Do I think there's something beyond that in development? No, because I think Nintendo are terrified of people like me and you and others like us who don't own a ton of amiibo, who don't want to own a ton of amiibo, who like Nintendo an awful lot and don't want to be soured by some game that actually looks pretty good but is stuck behind like a $bazillion price wall because of the number of amiibo it requires. So I can't see it going beyond anything incredibly kiddie and simplistic if it does exist. And if it does go beyond that, I think they're treading on some uneasy water.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the gameplay in a lot of these games, like Disney Infinity and Lego Dimensions and freaking Skylanders, they seem very generic, you know? Like, the Lego games are fun, sure, but like they don't grab me from a gameplay perspective, and I think it's a challenge to create a game like that is functionally fun to play and also uses the figures in a way that seems meaningful, you know? So I think Nintendo could maybe do it, but you know, they have different priorities, I think, when it comes to amiibo. Anyway, I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything else needs to be mentioned here, Bally. Not too
I don't
much
think so.
other-
I mean, are you getting more excited, or are you kind of leveled out a bit on your NX excitement for the time being? You're waiting for the next substantial injection of news.
I'm excited that people are talking about NX more than anything, because it signifies to me that there is going to be a lot of stuff happening this year surrounding that system and its reveal and everything. I think it may happen sooner than we think, because of all this stuff starting to leak and things. So, I think it actually has kind of raised my anticipation in many ways. So,
yeah, it's fun times we're living in right now, for sure, for Nintendo. And that on top of all the Star Wars speculation about Episode 8, it's just absolute internet heaven.
It is indeed. Well, all right then. Let's cap off the episode there, Bally. Before we go, you want to remind people of the competition that we're holding?
Absolutely. If you did not know, we are doing a competition. If you want a chance to win a European copy of Xenoblade Chronicles X, you just have to follow 3 simple steps. Number 1, write us a review on iTunes. Number 2, follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter account is @TNL Podcast. That's @TNL Podcast. And step number 3, let us know on the Twitter account. Send us a message to tell us that you gave us a review, and perhaps tell us your region in terms of which iTunes store you're writing in terms of European country, and maybe your username as well. And we will select a winner out of our favorite reviews.
Indeed. So we can also be found in other places, such as our email address, where you can send us things to talk about on the show and answer your emails. Bally, where can people send the emails to?
Please send all your emails to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That's ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com.
Keep them coming. Need some more of those going into the new year. Also, we can be found on the Twitters. I'm at Lordnbz. That's also my Miiverse name. What about you, Bally?
I'm at Ballyman91 on Twitter, and I am also under the same name on the Miiverse.
Indeedy. You started Trine, the original Trine.
Trine Enchanted Edition.
Yeah.
And I still don't really understand the difference between Trine and Trine Enchanted Edition. But
well, who does? Who even knows?
Hey, it's enchanted, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's more magic.
I left quite a funny Miiverse post from Fire Emblem Awakening.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Did you see it?
I did indeed, yeah.
I would highly recommend people checking that out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, good stuff. You can find the show in many places. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on YouTube. Find This Nintendo Life on the internet if you just go to Google and type it. It'll probably be there. You can download us whenever you want.
If you're listening on iTunes, remember to subscribe.
Yeah.
Because the next time, you don't even have to remember it. It'll just come into your podcast feed. It's
exactly.
amazing.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely
Brilliant.
amazing.
Indeed. I think that's it, but I think that's us for this episode.
I think it is.
But yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Some more video games, some more Nintendo chat, and hopefully some more interesting stuff. So, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back soon. Goodbye.
This just makes much more sense when looking for differentiate.
Just go from the top of the sentence.
This just makes much more sense when looking for differentiate. How do you pronounce this word?
Differentiating.
Differentiate.
Differentiating.
Differentiating.
Differentiating, yes.
Differentiating. God, I have to think about that literally every single time.
Wow.
Differentiating.
Differentiating.
Did you see that? There's a Scottish tongue twister for it's like this drunk guy, and they go up to him,
Yeah.
and it's like purple burglar alarm, and he goes like purple burglar burglar alarm. Purple burglar alarm. Anyway,
So stupid.
it's pretty funny. Right, from the sentence.